The Nintendo Switch. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know exactly what this is, Nintendo's latest, most hand-holdable console. As their marketing goes, with the Switch you can play anytime, anywhere, with anyone, which shows how confident Nintendo is with its portability. However, with that benefit of portability comes the fact that you're much more likely to drop a Switch than you would a PS4 or Xbox One, and as it just so happens, I did drop mine. It landed exactly on the right Joy-Con over here, and now it pops off with very little resistance, and without pressing on the release mechanism at the back. The left Joy-Con is fine. As you can see, if I push from the bottom, it stays in place as it should. If I want to remove it, I need to hold down the release and pull. Needless to say, I want to fix it, ideally without having to buy a new Joy-Con. And thanks to 3D printing, this is possible. So how does 3D printing provide a solution to fix this? Well, the Joy-Con slide onto the Switch on rails at the side of the console, and on those rails are grooves for tiny plastic locks in the Joy-Con to latch onto. As you can see on my blue right Joy-Con, the lock is deformed due to the fall. Compared to the red left Joy-Con, you can clearly see the difference. So this is the 3D printed lock I'm going to use to repair the Joy-Con. All it is a simple sliding lock, and replacing it is only a matter of removing 6 screws and the broken lock. I'll put a link in the blah-de-blah down below, but do note that the creator of the replacement part model only made one for the left Joy-Con. If you're going to be fixing your right Joy-Con like mine, you'll need to mirror the model of the replacement part. Aside from the part, you're going to need a tri-wing and small Phillips head screwdriver, some pliers, maybe tweezers, and a razor just in case your 3D print had the same problem as mine, which I'll touch on more later. I'm going to fast forward some parts of the disassembly process because there are better videos out there that showcase it, but essentially you're just removing 4 screws from the back of the Joy-Con. I'll take the opportunity now to remind you that this most definitely will void your Joy-Con warranty, and if you're squeamish about DIY repair on expensive electronics like this, maybe consider just sending it in to Nintendo if your console is still covered under warranty, which, considering the date of uploading this video, it most likely is. Be mindful of the ribbon cables as you're opening up the shell. We're going to remove this screw right over here, which requires a Phillips head. My driver is a 00, and that seemed to fit just fine. The screwdrivers that come with most jewelers' kits should also do the job. After removing the screw, take care not to lose the locking mechanism button. We can now set aside the bottom half of the Joy-Con shell. Now we can see the locking mechanism, which goes in when you push the button we just set aside. There is a spring inside which allows it to pop out and lock the Joy-Con as it slides in place. We'll need to remove all of this by removing this Phillips head screw as well as the retention bar. This part was really annoying for me personally because that retention bar seems to be held in place very tightly. I tried using the tweezers to ease it out of whatever grooves are holding it in, but I only ended up bending the tips of my tool. So eventually I decided to just use a pair of pliers to yank them out, but it's also possible to use a flathead screwdriver to get in there and wedge the bar out from underneath. Maybe. Do all of this at your own risk. Again, be careful with the ribbon cables here. You might also consider removing them if you're having a really hard time. With the retention bar removed, I can now show you the locking mechanism again, and you can clearly see how it works. If you push down, it recedes. When there's no pressure, it comes back out, and this part should keep it in place, but on mine, it's damaged, so it doesn't, and we have to remove it. But do keep in mind, again, to be very careful, this time about the spring. Make sure not to let it fly out. You can really just lift the lock from the bottom, just cover the top with your thumb or something like so you can block the spring from flying out, just like that. Now remove the spring from the old lock, put it right into the groove of the 3D printed replacement lock, and insert it into its slot on the Joy-Con slide. It's probably best to do that by letting it rest on the slide with the spring right on the edge. Then compress that spring with your tweezers or another flat tool like this, and push that right in. It should be able to move freely. A little bit of tightness is fine as long as the spring is able to push the lock back in place. If it's too tight, you might have to sand down the sides of your 3D printed part just to make it fit better. Finally, do the disassembly process in reverse and put your Joy-Con back together. Now, I did mention earlier about needing a razor to fix my 3D printed replacement part. This was due to the print turning out a bit wrong, only because I printed with the side that has the hole where you stick the spring through, touching the printer plate. Doing this kind of smushed the filament material, causing it to initially not have a hole as you can see in this picture. However, the hole was there, it was just covered, so I scraped off the top layer of the print to get at it. Depending on how you have your 3D print done, you might need to do the same, but it shouldn't be a problem for most people. If you can, have the printer settings to be as slow as possible to make sure the smallest details of the model turn out okay. And that's it, really. Not too difficult if you have the right tools, and of course if you have access to a 3D printer. And even if you don't, you can easily have this printed somewhere online for a reasonable price, certainly less than buying a new Joycon. Hope this video helped you out, and if it did, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Thanks for watching, be good.